I've been invisible for 8 months. That's just part of working in a house like Giovanni Moretti's. You learn how to move through rooms without being noticed. Like air. I polished glass tables that reflected chandeliers I'd never afford, folded towels softer than anything I've ever slept on, and arranged flowers worth more than my weekly groceries. The mansion stretches across 3 floors of Manhattan luxury. It's all marble floors, polished dark wood, and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook a city I can barely afford to live in. Giovanni Moretti is a shadow I learned to sense before I ever saw him. I recognize the sound of his shoes on the stairs, deliberate, unhurried, and I know that means to disappear. I only ever see him in passing. Dark hair, always styled, suits like they were made just for him, and those eyes, deep brown, almost gold, like old whiskey, that never really land on me. He holds meetings in his study with men who speak in low voices and leave through side exits. I come in after, clean ashtrays that smell like Cuban cigars, clear glasses still damp with scotch. I don't ask questions. That's not what I'm paid for. I'm paid to stay invisible. The one constant in my life is Brittany, my younger sister. She's 23, works in the mansion's kitchen. She has our mother's laugh and none of my caution. She makes food that smells like home. At the end of each shift, we ride the subway together back to our tiny apartment in the Bronx. 2 bedrooms, paper-thin walls, and neighbors who argue loudly at 3 a.m. But it's home, barely. We split everything. I work every extra shift I can. I have to. There's $47,000 in medical debt in my name. It didn't die with our mother. It just grew. Cancer didn't just take her. It wiped out our savings and buried us in bills. Even after she was gone, the hospital sent notices. I signed repayment plans I'd be stuck with for the next decade, took on insane interest rates, learned to survive on vending machine coffee and cheap dinners. So I clean, I work. I don't complain. I don't stop. That Thursday night, the old grandfather clock in the mansion's main hallway struck 10 while I was finishing up on the staircase. My shoulders ached from scrubbing the 3rd-floor bathroom, and when I bent down to grab my cleaning caddy, my back screamed. It was already dark outside. October in New York means early sunsets. Rain began to streak down the windows, turning the city into a blur of red taillights and wet pavement. "You heading out?" Brittany asked, walking over from the kitchen. She was slipping on her jacket, still smelling like rosemary and garlic from Giovanni's dinner. "Yeah. Long day." She looked at me, her eyes scanning my face the way only a sister could. "You look exhausted." "I'm fine. You always say that." She hooked her arm through mine as we walked toward the back exit. "Movie night this weekend? I'll make popcorn, if I'm not working." "Lauren," she added gently, "you can't keep doing doubles forever." "I can," I said. "I have to." Rent was coming up, and the hospital wanted another $300 I didn't have. Outside, the rain had picked up from a drizzle to a steady shower. We stood under the little awning by the service entrance while Brittany checked the subway status on her phone. "Train's running on time," she said. "Ready to make a run for it?" It was only 3 blocks. Just 3 blocks from the Moretti mansion to the Christopher Street station. We'd done it hundreds of times. Always together. Unless our shifts ended at different hours. The neighborhood was supposed to be safe. This was Moretti's territory, and everyone knew what that meant. Order, control, rules that people followed, whether they wanted to or not. Then Brittany got a text from her boyfriend. Something about his roommate, an emergency. She groaned. "Crap, I've got to go. You okay walking alone?" "I'm fine," I said. "It's 3 blocks," she hesitated. "You sure?" "I'll be home in 10 minutes." She kissed my cheek and jogged toward the garage where her rusty Honda was parked. I watched the car turn the corner and disappear. Then I pulled my hood up and started walking. The street was quiet. Too quiet. Most storefronts had already closed. Their windows were dark, the sidewalks slick. Amber light from old street lamps cast long shadows across the pavement. My sneakers slapped through puddles. My socks were soaked by the time I reached the 2nd block. I kept my head down and counted the stores like I always did. The Italian restaurant, the dry cleaner, the pharmacy with the flickering neon sign. Then I saw them. 2 men stepped out of the alley ahead, blocking the sidewalk. My heart stopped. One was a white guy, Probably in his early 30s, shaved head, wearing a jacket far too thin for this weather. The other was taller, broader, silent. "Evening," the first one said. "Evening," I replied, trying to move past them. He stepped into my path. "Where are you off to in such a rush?" "Home," I said. "Excuse me," he smiled. It wasn't friendly. "No rush. Just being neighborly." The big one moved behind me. My stomach dropped. "I don't want trouble," I said. "No trouble," the first guy replied. "Just need your bag." "And your phone," I froze. My heart was racing. Options ran through my head. Scream, run, fight. None of them would work. So I handed over my bag with trembling hands. He rummaged through it, pocketed my wallet. "Phone," he said. I reached into my coat and gave it to him. He looked at it, then at my chest. My uniform had shifted, the logo of the Moretti estate now visible. He stilled. "Wait a sec," he said. "You work at that house?" "No. Don't lie." He stepped closer, rain running down his face. "I know that logo. You work for the Italian, don't you? I don't know what you're talking about." "She works for Moretti," he said to the tall one. Fear flooded me. "I'm just a cleaner," I said quickly. "I don't know anything, please, I just clean houses." The first guy laughed, a mean, ugly sound. "Then you'll be our messenger." He punched me, out of nowhere. Across the face, pain exploded. I stumbled. Before I could scream, a hand clamped over my mouth. I felt fists slam into my ribs, into my back, over and over. "This is what happens when people think they own our streets," the man snarled. "When they think their Italian boss runs everything." Another punch, another. I lost count. Then, someone yanked my head up by my hair. Saw the fist coming. Then everything went black. Didn't know how long I was out. Seconds, minutes, it all blurred. When I came to, I was lying on the cold pavement, the rain soaking through every layer of my clothes. My cheek throbbed, my ribs felt like they were on fire, and my left eye wouldn't open. The taste of blood filled my mouth, metallic and thick. My bag was gone, my phone too, and so were they. For a long moment I just lay there, blinking up at the rain, barely breathing. Everything hurt. Every small movement sent a fresh wave of pain through my ribs. I sat up slowly, biting back a sob. My hands were scraped and bloody, my jeans torn at the knees. Through the blur of pain and rain, I could make out the glowing lights of the subway entrance just half a block away. Get up, move, get home. I don't remember most of that walk, just fragments. The clang of the turnstile as I stumbled through. A stranger's concerned face asking if I needed help. Me shaking my head no. The rocking of the train as it carried me north. I must have looked like a ghost. The climb up to our apartment felt like trying to summit a mountain. Each stair was a battle, each breath a stab. When I finally made it to our bathroom mirror, I stopped and stared. I barely recognized myself. My left eye was swollen shut, purple blooming around the socket like spilled ink. My bottom lip was cracked open, blood drying in the corners. When I lifted my shirt, dark bruises were already forming along my side, deep purple, some almost black. My arms had clear finger marks, where they'd grabbed me and held me down. I turned on the shower and sank to the floor, still fully clothed, letting the hot water run over me while the steam curled around my face. I didn't cry right away. I stayed still, numb. But eventually the sobs came, quiet ones, muffled, controlled. I didn't want to wake Brittany, but she woke anyway. I heard her footsteps in the hall. Then her gasp as she found me sitting on the tile, soaked, shivering, bruised. "Lauren," she whispered, kneeling next to me. "Oh my God, what happened?" "I'm okay," I said, even as I shook with pain. "You're not." "You're bleeding." "I can't afford the hospital," I said, voice cracking. "I can't afford another ER bill." She didn't argue. She helped me out of the wet clothes, guided me gently into dry ones, wrapped a towel around me. Her hands hovered, careful, afraid to cause more pain. "Who did this?" she asked, mugged. "Two guys. They took everything. Did you call the police?" "No phone." "Remember?" I tried to laugh, but it came out broken. "I'll file a report tomorrow." She didn't press. Instead, she sat with me for hours, applying first aid cream and bandaging the worst of the scrapes. When I finally lay down, stiff and aching in every limb, She sat beside me, eyes wide and terrified. "I shouldn't have left you alone," she whispered. "It's not your fault," I said. But as I stared at the ceiling, every part of me throbbing with pain, all I could think about was that man's face when he saw my uniform. The moment of recognition, the way the violence changed after that. It hadn't been random, and somehow, that made it worse. Sleep came in broken stretches, stolen minutes between flares of pain. When my alarm buzzed at 6, I stayed in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, thinking about what it would cost me to miss a shift. One day's pay might mean another late fee, a penalty, another month stuck in debt, $47,000. That number chased me in my dreams, haunted me every waking hour. That number chased me in my dreams, haunted me every waking hour. I dragged myself out of bed. My entire left side screamed. My ribs stabbed every time I moved. I made it to the bathroom and studied my reflection again. My face looked like it had been in a car crash. My eye nearly swollen shut, my lip crusted with blood, bruises crawling across my jaw and cheek. I layered on makeup, concealer, foundation, powder, tried to cover the damage, but no amount of product could hide what was there. I pulled on a high-neck, long-sleeve shirt despite the heat. Charcoal gray covered everything it could. I looked in the mirror and barely saw myself. Just a badly disguised version of the girl I used to be. When I walked into the kitchen, Brittany was already there. She turned and froze. "Don't," I said before she could speak. "I'm going to work." "Lauren, you can barely walk." "I can walk fine." A lie. "And I need the money." "One day won't." "Yes, it will." She didn't argue. She just nodded. Quiet, defeated. "At least let me drive you," she said softly, and I let her. Because the thought of taking the subway, of walking those streets again, turned my stomach. When we reached the mansion, everything looked the same, untouched, like nothing had happened. I climbed out of the car slowly, every step jarring the bruises under my clothes. Brittany gave me a look that said we'd talk later, and drove around to the garage. I entered through the service entrance, head down. No one looked twice, and just like that, I slipped back into invisibility. But the pain didn't let me forget, and neither did the memory of those words. "You work for Moretti." I made it through the morning in a haze of pain and routine, scrubbing the second-floor guest bathroom, folding the same monogrammed towels, dusting the grand piano in the front room. My body moved on autopilot. Every stretch, every twist, every breath reminded me of the fists that had landed on me the night before. But I kept moving, because I had no choice. No one noticed. No one asked about the swelling on my face, the way I winced when I bent over, or the stiffness in my walk. Not the other housekeepers. Not the security guy at the gate. And definitely not Giovanni Moretti. He never looked at me. He never had to. That was the rule. Don't speak to the boss unless you're spoken to. And he rarely said a word to anyone below management level. Not unless you'd screwed something up, or were bleeding on the rug. I stayed away from him, like always, until noon. I was in the hallway outside his office, vacuuming the runner that stretched from one end to the other. I wasn't supposed to be there during office hours, but Marta, the head maid, had barked at me to finish the damn corridor before her break, so I obeyed. I kept my eyes low, praying he wouldn't come out when the door opened. And there he was, Giovanni Moretti. In a black shirt, sleeves rolled, gold watch glinting on his wrist. His hair was slicked back like always, jaw sharp, brow furrowed like he was already halfway into a problem he didn't like. I froze. He started to walk past me without a glance, but then stopped. He turned slightly, staring down at me. My hands tightened on the vacuum handle. My heart thundered in my ears. His eyes narrowed. "What happened to your face?" It took me a second to realize he was talking to me. I swallowed. "I tripped," I said quickly, eyes on the floor. And I fell getting off the subway, his silence stretched. I could feel the weight of his gaze on the side of my head. I kept my face tilted down to hide the worst of the bruising. My cheek still ached where the makeup had barely covered the purple and yellow swelling. "You tripped," he repeated. Flat. "Yes, sir." "Look at me." "I didn't move," I said. "Look at me." My eyes lifted slowly, reluctantly. His face didn't change, but his eyes locked onto mine, flicking over the bruises with clinical precision. He didn't believe me. I could see it in the tightness of his jaw. "Who did this to you?" he asked, voice low, quiet in a way that made it more dangerous than if he'd yelled. "I don't know," I whispered. "They were wearing hoods. It was dark. I didn't see." He didn't say anything, just stared. Then he turned his head and called out, "Leo." A man appeared around the corner like he'd been standing there all along. Tall, built like a linebacker, in a charcoal suit with a faint scar running down the side of his jaw. I'd seen him a few times, always lingering in the shadows like he was part of the furniture. But I knew better. Everyone in the house did. Leo was one of them. Giovanni gestured toward me without looking. "Take her to the kitchen. Get her some ice. I want the footage from last night. Every camera between here and Christopher Street." Leo gave a sharp nod. I panicked. "Please, you don't have to." Giovanni cut me off. "You work in my house, which means you walk on my streets. No one touches what's mine." Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. I stood there, stunned as Leo stepped forward. "This way," he said, not unkindly. I followed him, legs trembling, down to the kitchen. He didn't ask questions. He didn't say anything at all. Just handed me a pack of crushed ice wrapped in a towel and pulled out a chair. I sat, dazed. I expected it to end there. But that evening, when I was gathering my things to leave, 2 black SUVs pulled up in front of the mansion. Men in dark coats stepped out, 6 of them. Silent, purposeful. They didn't say a word as they passed through the front doors. I didn't know it then, but they were going hunting. And before sunrise, the whole city would shake. I didn't sleep that night. Not a single minute. Even after I made it home. Even after Brittany pressed hot tea into my hands and begged me to stay home the next day. My mind kept replaying that moment in the hallway. Giovanni Moretti standing still, asking who hurt me. Then saying those words, "No one touches what's mine." He didn't even know my name. I was just another cleaner, another girl in the background. But something about the way he said it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And then there were the SUVs. I'd seen them arrive. Seen the men step out in silence, dressed in black like they were going to a funeral. I didn't know what they were doing. But every gut instinct I had told me. They weren't here to clean windows. They were looking for someone. By morning, I got my answer. The news hadn't hit the big stations yet, but whispers had already started circulating online. Brittany's boyfriend sent her a text before we even left the house. "Yo, 2 bodies found in the alley off Christopher, execution style. Cops think it's gang-related." My fingers went cold around my coffee mug. Christopher Street, where I'd been attacked. Brittany looked at me with wide eyes. "Lauren, do you think—" "I don't know," I said. "But I did. Giovanni sent those men. I didn't understand how or why. I was just a maid. I had no pull, no importance. But clearly to him it wasn't about me. It was about the message. You don't touch what belongs to Moretti." When I arrived at work that morning, everything was quieter than usual. There was a strange tension in the air, like everyone knew something had happened, but no one dared speak it aloud. I kept my head down, moved through my routine. No one said a word to me about the bruises, the limp in my walk, or the fresh news from the streets, until Marta cornered me by the linen closet. "You?" she said under her breath, glancing around like she was afraid someone would hear. "What did you do?" "I don't know what you mean." She looked at me hard. 2 dead men, 5 blocks from here, and Moretti's crew was out last night. You think we don't notice? I didn't ask him to do anything. You didn't have to. Her voice was sharp. You brought attention to this house. That's dangerous. I didn't respond, because what could I say? She wasn't wrong, but I hadn't meant to bring anything. By lunchtime, the rumors had reached the other staff. One of the drivers swore he saw Leo come in at dawn, his knuckles bloodied. One of the housemaids said she overheard someone whispering about a message being delivered. No one mentioned me by name, but they looked at me differently now, like I was no longer invisible, like I was radioactive. And then, that afternoon, Giovanni called for me. Personally. I was in the laundry room when Marta stormed in. He wants you upstairs now. My stomach flipped. Wants you upstairs now. My stomach flipped. I climbed the stairs, every joint aching, every breath reminding me of the bruises under my shirt. 2 of Giovanni's men stood outside his office. They didn't speak. Just opened the door. He was sitting behind his desk, sleeves rolled, reading something on his phone. His gold watch gleamed in the sunlight pouring through the window. "Sit," he said without looking up. I sat. He put the phone down and looked at me. "You lied to me yesterday." I swallowed. "I didn't mean to. I was scared. You knew exactly who they were." "I didn't know their names," I said. "But I think they knew yours." His jaw tightened. "They said things. About owning the streets. About Italians thinking they run everything." Giovanni nodded once, slow, like a puzzle piece had clicked into place. "You said you just clean." "I do." He stared at me for a long moment. "You're lucky it was me who found out." "Why?" "Because if one of my men had found out first, they might have assumed you were bait. A message from someone else." My breath caught. "But I watched the footage," he said. "You were just in the wrong place." "I'm sorry." He leaned forward slightly. "Don't be." I blinked. "I meant what I said," he continued. "No one lays hands on anyone in my house. You're not just some girl who scrubs my floors. You walk through that door every day. That makes you mine." I should have felt owned, claimed, but I didn't. I felt safe, which scared me more than anything. Before I could speak, he stood, walked to the cabinet in the corner of the room, and pulled out a sleek black box. He set it in front of me and opened the lid. "A brand new phone." "I replaced it," he said. "Same number. Everything synced." I stared. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." I took the phone with trembling hands. Then he said something that chilled me. "If they had done worse, we'd be burying more than 2. My mouth went dry. "Now go rest," he said. "You're off for the next 3 days. Full pay." I stood, barely managing a nod. My legs felt like water beneath me. As I reached the door, his voice stopped me. "Lauren," I turned. "If anyone ever touches you again, I want to be the first to know." I nodded and walked out. But deep down, something had already changed, and I didn't know whether I should feel protected or owned. I didn't go home right away. After I left Giovanni's office, I walked the long way around the mansion, down through the back garden and out to the narrow path by the east wing, just to get some air. My head was spinning. The new phone felt heavy in my pocket, like it wasn't really mine. Like none of this was really mine. I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. "You're not just some girl who scrubs my floors. That makes you mine." Part of me wanted to scream at the word mine. I wasn't property. I was a person. I'd spent my whole life clawing to stay independent, to keep me and Brittany afloat, without owing anyone anything. But the other part, the quieter, more dangerous part, felt something else, seen, safe. Like for the first time in a long time, someone was willing to burn down the world if I got hurt, and that was terrifying. When I finally made it home, Brittany was pacing the kitchen, her phone in her hand, a half-burnt grilled cheese on the stove. "Oh, thank God," she said, rushing toward me. "Where were you? You didn't text." "I didn't have my number synced until an hour ago," I said, pulling out the new phone. Her eyes widened. "What the hell? Where did you—" "Giovanni gave it to me," she blinked. "Wait, like, Giovanni?" "Yes." She stared at me like I'd grown another head. "What did you say to him?" "Nothing." I slumped into a chair. "He noticed the bruises. Asked who did it." I lied. "He didn't believe me. Obviously. They're dead. The guys who attacked me. 2 of them. Found this morning, same alley." Her face went pale. "Jesus. I didn't ask for any of this." "But you work in his house," she said slowly, sitting down across from me. "That's all it takes." I nodded. "Apparently." We were quiet for a moment, then she said, "Are you scared?" I thought about it. "I don't know. I should be." "But you're not." "No." And that was the part I couldn't explain. The next 3 days passed in a strange, restless rhythm. I slept in, iced my ribs, and stared out the window at the city below. Brittany hovered constantly, bringing me soup, asking if I needed anything. She kept her voice soft, like I might shatter, but I wasn't shattering. I was shifting, because the world around me had changed. I didn't check the news. I didn't have to. Rumors flew through staff group chats and whispers from people we knew. The 2 men who died were connected to the Navarro family, an old rival to the Morettis. Giovanni had been keeping peace for years, but someone must have decided to test him. They chose the wrong target, and that target was me. I was lying on the couch on the 3rd evening, watching the city lights flicker when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You feeling any better? My heart jumped. Only one person could have sent that. I typed back, me. Getting there. Thank you. For everything. A pause, then, unknown number, dinner. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Don't say no. I stared at the message. Dinner? With him? I waited a full 5 minutes before responding. Me. Do I have a choice? His reply came almost instantly. Unknown number. Not really. Wear something comfortable. Leo will pick you up. And just like that, it was decided. I sat there for a long time, phone in hand, thoughts spiraling. Why was he doing this? What did he want? To check on me? To keep me quiet? To claim me? But under the questions was something else I didn't want to admit. Excitement. The next day, I stood in front of my closet for a solid hour. Comfortable didn't help much. I didn't have anything fancy, but I also didn't want to look like a girl who just scrubbed floors. I finally settled on black jeans, ankle boots, and a simple green blouse that Brittany insisted brought out my eyes. Are you sure about this? She asked as I stood by the window waiting. No, I said honestly. Leo arrived exactly at 7:45 like clockwork. Same dark suit. Same unreadable face. He didn't speak as I climbed into the back seat of the sleek black car, but he gave me a small nod. We drove in silence for 20 minutes before turning down a quiet, gated driveway lined with trimmed hedges and glowing lanterns. The house at the end wasn't the mansion. It was something else entirely. Smaller, quieter, private. Leo opened the door for me and I stepped out, stomach fluttering. The front door was already open, and Giovanni Moretti was standing there, waiting for me, his sleeves rolled up, apron tied around his waist, holding a wine bottle in one hand. You cook? I asked, startled. He smirked. Not well, but I figured if I threatened the chef, he'd prep it for me. He stepped aside, letting me in. Dinner's ready, and don't worry, I left the bodyguards outside. I smiled despite myself. This wasn't what I expected, but maybe that was the point. The dining room was nothing like the grand hall at the mansion. This place, wherever we were, felt more like a hideout than a home. The walls were a warm charcoal gray, lined with black and white photographs. A long rustic table sat beneath a low-hanging light fixture. No staff, no noise, just a single-place setting, and one for me. Giovanni gestured for me to sit. I hesitated at the edge of the room. Are you always this hospitable to your staff? He poured 2 glasses of wine, only the ones who bleed on my streets. The way he said it, flat, casual, made the hairs on my arms rise. I sat down. He served the food himself. Seared steak, roasted potatoes, and something that smelled like garlic butter and herbs. Don't get used to this, he said, placing the plate in front of me. I'm a terrible cook. The chef did 90% of the work. I just lit the fire. I stared at him. This man had sent killers into the night without blinking, ordered 2 deaths with a flick of his fingers. Yet here he was, setting the table, pouring wine, joking about his limited cooking skills. None of it made sense. You're not what I expected, I said. He arched a brow. What did you expect? I don't know. More threats. Less cutlery, he smiled, a rare, real one. I save the threats for people who deserve them. You don't. We ate mostly in silence at first, but it wasn't uncomfortable. He didn't pepper me with questions, didn't try to make me talk about what happened. Instead, he asked things like what kind of music I liked, whether I'd ever been to Italy, if I preferred cats or dogs. I answered carefully, still unsure if this was some kind of test. Then, halfway through the meal, he asked the question that shifted everything. Why didn't you tell me the truth that night? I hesitated. Then I answered honestly, because people like me don't get involved in things like this. If I told you who they were, what they said, I thought I'd make it worse. For who? My sister, myself, the house, everyone. He leaned back, swirling his wine glass, his eyes never leaving mine. That's smart. Most people panic. I panicked, I said. I just hid it better. Giovanni nodded slowly. You remind me of someone. Who? My mother. That stopped me cold. Was she was a cleaner too, he said, voice quieter now. Before my father died. Before all this. He gestured vaguely around the room, like the empire he ruled was just furniture. She used to say the same thing, that people like us shouldn't speak unless asked, that staying invisible was safer than being seen. I stared at him. I'd never heard anyone talk about a mafia boss's mother like this. It didn't fit. What happened to her? She died when I was 17. Some low-level punk pushed her during a robbery. She cracked her skull on a sidewalk. He sipped his wine. By the next morning, his whole crew was gone. I believed him. Since then, he continued, I've had one rule. No one touches what's mine. There it was again. That word. Mine. Mine. I set down my fork. You keep saying that like I belong to you. You work in my house. You live under my protection. That's not ownership, it's structure. It's how things stay clean. Do I have a say in that? He didn't answer immediately. He studied me. Really looked at me like he was trying to decide what kind of person I was. Then he said, you always have a choice. But just know, no one else will protect you the way I do. Silence stretched between us again. Then he asked, almost casually, do you want me to back off? The room felt smaller suddenly. My chest tight. I should have said yes. I should have walked away right then and there. But I thought about those men in the alley, about how fast and cruel they'd been, how powerless I'd felt, and how, without even asking for it, Giovanni had answered. I shook my head slowly. No, I don't want that. He nodded once, like he'd been expecting it. We didn't talk much after that. He cleared the dishes while I sat in stunned silence, wondering how I'd gone from background noise in his life to this. Whatever this was. Before I left, he handed me a keycard. What's this? Private elevator, back entrance to the mansion. If you ever feel unsafe, anytime, any reason, you use it. I'll be fine, I said. He stepped a little closer. Not threatening, just steady. That's not a request. I took it. On the drive home, Leo didn't say a word, but his eyes flicked to me in the mirror once, almost like he already knew. Something had shifted tonight. I'd crossed a line I didn't even know existed. And deep down, I knew I couldn't go back. The keycard stayed in my purse for 2 days before I touched it again. Not because I forgot, it was impossible to forget, but because I didn't know what it meant. That little black rectangle was more than just access. It was a choice, a line. Once I used it, there'd be no pretending I was just a cleaner anymore. But pretending was already getting harder. The staff had started acting different. Some were polite, nicer than usual, but others, not so much. The looks they gave me weren't curiosity anymore. They were fear. Marta barely spoke to me. One of the other maids, Clara, wouldn't meet my eyes, and 2 of the kitchen assistants stopped talking altogether when I entered the room. I'd gone from invisible to untouchable. Even, Brittany noticed. They think you're sleeping with him, she said bluntly, standing over the sink at home, scrubbing a pot like it had personally offended her. I'm not, I said, maybe a little too fast. I didn't ask if you were, she said, glancing at me. I'm just telling you what they think. And in a place like that, what people think matters more than what's real. I leaned on the counter, exhausted. I didn't ask for this. I know, she said, voice softening. But it found you anyway. That night, after everyone was asleep, I sat on the floor of my bedroom and took out the key card. I stared at it for a long time, wondering what would happen if I used it, wondering what would happen if I didn't. Then my phone buzzed. Giovanni, you awake? Me, yeah, Giovanni. Don't come in tomorrow. I want to show you something instead. 10 a.m. me, where? Giovanni, use the keycard. I stared at the screen. Then typed one word, me. Okay. The next morning I dressed simple. Black jeans, a white blouse, clean sneakers, nothing too formal, nothing too casual. I didn't tell Brittany I was leaving. I didn't have the strength to explain what I didn't fully understand myself. I took the subway like always, but instead of entering through the back with the other staff, I went around to the east wing. A sleek dark panel was hidden behind a stone arch. I slid the keycard. The lock beeped. A soft green light blinked. The door opened. Inside was silence, cool air, a private elevator. When the door slid open at the top, Giovanni was waiting. He was standing in a glass hallway that overlooked the city. No suit today, just dark jeans, a fitted gray shirt, and bare arms that revealed a snake tattoo curled along his left bicep. Without a word, he gestured for me to follow. We walked through a wing of the mansion I'd never seen before, quiet, minimal, expensive. He opened a wide door at the end of the hall and stepped aside. Inside was an office, but not like his usual one. This wasn't made for business. It was personal. Bookshelves lined with old leather novels, a record player spinning something slow and jazzy, a large desk with photos scattered across it. I noticed a framed picture on the corner, a boy, maybe 5 years old, black hair, serious eyes, sitting on a woman's lap. Your mother? I asked. He nodded. She looks kind, I said. She was, until she wasn't allowed to be anymore. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't need to. He motioned toward the seat across from him. I sat. I brought you here, he said, because I want to make you an offer. I stiffened. What kind of offer? You're smart, quiet. You observe everything. You don't talk unless you have something to say. He leaned forward. I need someone like that. To do what? To work for me. Not as a maid, not in the kitchen. For me, I stared. You want me to be, what, your assistant? No, not exactly. I want you close. I want someone in my circle who sees what others don't. Someone I can trust. My breath caught. Why me? Because when you got hurt, you didn't scream. You didn't run. You protected everyone else before yourself. That tells me something about you. I'm not like you. No, he said. But you could be. I sat back, heart pounding. This was insane. This was dangerous. And if I say no? He shrugged. You keep cleaning floors. I still protect you. Nothing changes. But you'll always wonder what could have been different. I didn't answer. He stood, walked over to the window and looked out at the skyline. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're already in this, Lauren. The night they touched you, they made you part of my world. All I'm offering now is a seat at the table. Silence stretched between us. I looked down at my hands, folded in my lap. I should have said no. I should have walked away, but I didn't. Instead, I looked up and said the words that sealed my fate. What do I have to do? The next week was a blur of things I never thought I'd be part of. Giovanni didn't ease me in. He threw me into his world like someone tossing a match into gasoline, and I lit fast. I shadowed him everywhere. Meetings, calls, quiet lunches in places no one could trace. I learned names, real ones, not the ones whispered in hallways. I watched deals made with a nod, threats delivered with a glance. I never spoke unless spoken to, never asked more than I needed to, but I watched. That was all he wanted, really. Someone to watch. And when you spend time in the lion's den, eventually, you learn how to grow teeth too. It was Leo who started treating me different first. Less like a housekeeper, more like someone who mattered. He began to give me quiet nods of respect. He even taught me things. How to spot a tail, how to notice if someone's following you, what it means when a car parks 2 blocks away and doesn't leave. By the 3rd week, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was something else entirely. One evening, Giovanni called me into his office. This time, there was no paperwork on the desk, no pretense of business. He slid a manila folder across the table. I hesitated. What's this? Something you need to see. I opened it. Inside were photos. Grainy surveillance shots. A man with a scar under his right eye. Tall, lean, too familiar. My throat tightened. That's one of the men who attacked you, Giovanni said. The 3rd one, The one who ran before my people got there. I looked up sharply. You said there were 2. There were, he said. 2 who died, but 3 who attacked you. The last one vanished. Until now. The rage that surged up inside me was something new. Clean. Cold. Giovanni watched my reaction carefully. He's with the Navarros now. They're moving in on one of our supply chains. That's no coincidence. So he was sent after me, or you were the bonus. Either way, he left you alive. His voice hardened. That was his mistake, I swallowed. What happens now? He leaned back. That's your call, I blinked. Mine? He hurt you. That makes it personal. I'll handle it if you want nothing to do with it. But if you want to finish what he started, Giovanni let the words hang between us. I'll let you. I stared down at the photo. The last time I saw that man, I was on the pavement, choking on blood, praying to survive. Now I had the power to decide what happened next. My hands didn't shake. Where is he? I asked. Giovanni didn't smile. He nodded. Once. That night, I rode with Leo and another of Giovanni's men, a guy named Marco with hands like stone. They didn't speak much, just handed me a phone with a map, a pistol, and gloves. I didn't ask questions. When we arrived at the abandoned warehouse near the Brooklyn waterfront, the man was already there, tied to a chair, blood on his face, breathing hard. His eyes widened when he saw me. You, he whispered. He remembered. Good. I walked slowly toward him, heart pounding, not from fear, but from clarity. Everything in my life had led here, from hospital bills and subway rides to this exact moment, and I wasn't scared. I begged you to stop, I said softly. And you laughed. He said nothing. I looked at Leo. Leave us. Leo hesitated. Are you sure? Yes. The room emptied, the door clicking shut behind them. For 5 long minutes, I said nothing. I just let him look at me, at the bruises that were gone, the fear that had burned away, the new fire in my eyes. Then I leaned in close and whispered, "No one touches what's his," and pulled the trigger. Once. Clean. Final. By the time I walked out, the wind off the river was cold. Leo didn't say a word as I climbed into the SUV. Neither did Marco. But I saw the way they looked at me now. Not like a cleaner, not even like a survivor, like someone who belonged. Back at the mansion, Giovanni was standing in the hallway, waiting. When he saw me, he didn't ask what happened. He just studied my face. You did it. I nodded. He didn't smile. He just stepped closer, gently touched the side of my face, where the last of the bruise had once been. He can't hurt you anymore, he said quietly. No, I replied. But someone else will try, he nodded. And now they'll know better. A pause. Then he said something I never expected. I'm proud of you. My breath caught. It was the first kind thing anyone had said to me in months. I didn't answer. I just nodded, and for the first time since that night I felt strong. I wasn't just a maid anymore. I wasn't prey. I was part of something bigger. Something darker. Something with rules of its own. And in Giovanni Moretti's world, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was untouchable.